point out the game that's afoot here, okay? You just heard a lawyer for Trump who I believe acts in good faith. You can agree or not agree. The same party that believes the Second Amendment involves an individual right. Now, I'm a gun owner, but it's not in there in the literal letter. They say Section 3 of the 14th Amendment that disqualifies people for being connected to aiding those who were trying to commit insurrection or, hurt the United States, like hurt voting. Doesn't apply because it's not in there when there is language specifically in it that says, or hold any office. You see what I'm saying? That's the game. With one case, you want to read something into it that's not there. With the other case, you want to pretend that something that's in there doesn't matter. That's the game. But you know what? We're in the game. And really, the only thing that will likely keep the former president from being the Republican nominee is the Republican Party. Is there any chance of that? Because he's crushing the field. New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu joins us now. Good to see you, as always, Governor. And I'm on record as saying, would have loved to have seen you in this race, but you do you. You keep saying it's not going to be Trump. Do you not see the poll numbers?
Oh, yeah, I see them. I see them in New Hampshire, where he has under 40% of the vote. I see him in Iowa, where the real Clear Politics average in the last couple polls is about 42%. So you have to understand, national polls, I get it, but national polls are purely a reflection of kind of national media. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying folks in Nebraska, in Texas, in Montana, they're seeing exactly what is discussed on the national media. What New Hampshire and Iowa are seeing are all the other candidates, all the other opportunities, all the other chances, the retail politics of these folks to not just get people excited about another opportunity, but inspire folks. And it's working. It really is. So he's not at 50+%. He's barely over 40, and even in New Hampshire, under 40%. He knows it. He's in trouble. So when they hit the debate stage nationally, when they get to show something a little more nationally, when some of these newer candidates can get a little more national exposure as opposed to just here on the ground, I think Trump knows he's going to be in trouble. We will winnow it down to just one or two candidates and just him well before Super Tuesday. I feel very confident in that. I can't tell you who it's going to be, but no matter who it is, they're going to win because he can't win. He cannot win in November of 24. There's no independent voter watching the nonsense that's happening today, the craziness that this man has brought to the Republican Party and in this country, saying, you know what, I think I'm with them now. No, not happening at all. He's losing voters by the minute nationally. Even though his base might stick with him, well more than half of the Republican Party is going to be with someone else, and he's in trouble, which is a good thing for America.
Are you impressed by today's indictment?
It seems thorough. I mean, I've only looked at it for a couple hours now and kind of heard about it, through news, media, and reports. I can tell you this. I did talk to folks on the Trump team today. They're concerned. They know, or I should say, they know he is concerned because this one is different. I know it's the third indictment, and unfortunately, probably not the last. Another one's going to come. But this one involves a lot of other people, a lot of folks that were in his sphere, that were part of these discussions time and time again, where he has admitted, and he knows he did not win. He knows this is no news to him. But the problem is that a lot of those individuals that were there in 2020 and 21 are not part of his inner circle anymore. He cannot control the narrative. He doesn't know what they're saying to the Department of Justice. He doesn't know what they'll likely say if they have to take the stand. So I think he's much more concerned, not just aggravated and bothered, but really concerned knowing where this could go because he's not controlling the narrative on this one.
Do you think that there is any energy within the party to either make a move if he makes it to the convention or to try something like Section 3 of the 14th Amendment and try to bring a civil action that they have standing and that he is disqualified because of his connection, regardless of any conviction, because it's not required, to those who were trying to rig the election and defraud the outcome?
I don't think so. I mean, there could be talk. That's that's a year away from now, but I don't think that would have I think if he gets the nomination, he gets the nomination. The Republican Party will abide by that. If he wins the votes fairly and he gets the delegates fairly, then he gets the delegates fairly. And the Republican Party will have to, unfortunately, live with the consequences. Because it's not just the consequences of not getting the White House back. It's the consequences of losing the Senate races, the governor's races, the school board races. We got our clocks cleaned in 2018 and 2020. Because of his message. We should have had a red wave in 22. Didn't happen because of him, his message, and his type of candidates. And so, obviously, the same thing is going to happen again. I'm an engineer. I went to MIT. Systems play out again. You can't do nothing. You can't do nothing different and expect a different result. It doesn't work like that. So unfortunately, that would just be the unfortunate consequence for the Republican Party. And that's why I'm working so hard to raise these other candidates, to show them. And again, I get it's happening in Iowa and New Hampshire. It'd be great if some of these other candidates got better exposure on the national level to show what they have. They're getting to be great candidates on the ground. They're getting a lot of traction. But I would watch those polls in Iowa and New Hampshire. National polls don't mean anything right now.
Hey, Governor.
It's just so where those folks are earning it, it's making a difference.
Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to newsnationnow.com, newsnationnow.com, and you can find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button down below. Then you will get more of NewsNation's fact-driven coverage.